The Oregon Ocean is an incredible ecosystem. It inspires and it provides, but it doesn't take care of itself, and we are on the front lines of global ocean changes. Hypoxia and ocean acidification in particular, these are changes that we will not reverse in our lifetimes. And we need good science to make sure that we know what we're facing and what we can do to get onto the right paths to the future we want. But science also doesn't take care of itself, and we depend on support in dollars and in partnerships to sustain research and observations. You all know this, of course, and have supported the ability of Oregon scientists to stay in the water, stay in the lab, and stay in the community. With this video, I want to report back on some of what that support has meant. Let me start with the why. We're in an era of rapid climate change, and sustained observations are crucial. We face constant surprises. Some things are more readily seen or felt, like marine heat waves. Others, like supercharged upwelling on top of already strengthening upwelling winds that create hypoxic zones, much less so. I started with wind because it's what shapes our coastal ocean. When upwelling is strong, it brings up more oxygen poorer, but also CO2 rich waters, as well as more nutrients that fuel phytoplankton blooms. And these blooms, when they sink, they further lower oxygen and increase CO2. This all happens below the surface, of course, and being able to put sensors where changes are happening is fundamental. With OOS support, we've been able to keep key sensors in the ocean. This is allowing us to connect the dots between wind and hypoxia. Here, we can see that hypoxia at Cape Perpetua during an extraordinarily strong upwelling season. In the middle of the continental shelf, just outside the Cape Perpetua Marine Reserve, we see that low oxygen can last half the year and even drop to zero. That's a very long time for a fish to hold its breath. But that's only one spot in the ocean. An important question is, what's the geography of climate stress? Where are the hot spots and where are the potential refuges? And geography really matters. This is our second long-term station inside the marine reserve. When we move into shallower waters, we get a really different picture of hypoxic exposure and how quickly that exposure can change from day to day or even hour to hour. This is why partnerships are so important. We just can't cover the ocean well by ourselves. Leveraging off long-standing collaborations with ODF&W's Marine Reserve team, as well as community partners, in addition to the Dungeness crab fleet, we've been able to target observations across marine reserves in Oregon and build a more complete picture. When we build that picture, we see that different reserves face different severity of hypoxia. And this can matter when we think about when and where ODF&W biologists might be doing hook and line surveys to evaluate marine reserve performance. In conjunction with our pH sensor project, we can also see that there's a coupling between hypoxia and ocean acidification stress in marine reserves, places that we've set aside for protection in our state. The model that we've been working on is that by sustaining measurements in our longest time and most robust time series at Cape Perpetua, that these research measurements that we make can serve as a reference point that can help us to interpret differences along our coast. I also want to emphasize that the question of geography isn't just academic. Just days ago, our fisherman partner working in the Port Orford area detected hypoxia, and whether he turned north or south really meant whether he was fishing in the middle of a hypoxic zone or outside of one. Sustaining this collaborative network also means that we're able to build a more robust understanding together of how the ocean's changing. Coming off the heels of our strongest upwelling year in 2021, 2022 was another surprise, this one being one of the weakest upwelling years on record. We actually thought this would give us a break from hypoxia, but it appeared that even when upwelling was weak, we can now still face zero oxygen or anoxia. But as we looked at this data, the question is this really change or maybe it's a sensor malfunction? When we only have one time series, it's really hard to know if an event is real or if it's an artifact of a sensor reporting a wrong data value. But when we have this collaborative network, we see now that what might have been a question mark turned out to be a coast-wide anoxia event that we could have easily missed. Another important point that you all know well is that we need to be thinking about the next generation of scientists and importantly, problem solvers for Oregon. whose support has allowed me to engage students in the science of ocean climate change. Here, an undergraduate working in my lab is building a pH sensor that's actually in the field as we speak. And also, each spring, as part of my course in ocean climate change, my students have worked hands on to calibrate and ready sensors for deployment. Sharing the science that we do, what changes mean for the ocean and for people, well, those are key priorities for us. And we've worked with the media to get the word out whenever we have a chance. We also try to reach decision makers and other ocean users. The story of what we're facing and how Oregonians, how we're rolling up our sleeves and working together is one that really needs to be heard. Science dollars are of course hard to come by, and investments in ocean observing, that's precious. I want to emphasize how impactful these investments have been. It demonstrates that our state values ocean climate research and that it's a concrete priority. This I know has enhanced the ability of our research community, not just myself, but across the board, across Oregon, to be more competitive when we seek outside funding. For example, I'm part of two projects, one on supporting a climate-ready Dungeness crab fishery, and another on bringing more technological innovations to fleet-based ocean monitoring that I can say are the direct outgrowth of our OOS-supported projects. I want to end by sharing a view of the Cape Falcon Marine Reserve from one of my pH sensor collaborators, Dick Vanderschaft. As you'll hear, his passion for ocean really reminds me why science has to step up and stay engaged. Thank you.
You can see here the sensor is in intertidal zone, just within the barnacle and the mussel beds. And this is at Short Sands Beach at Cape Falcon Marine Reserve. Cape Falcon is the northernmost marine reserve here, so it's influenced by the Columbia River plume, that big freshwater coming down. And usually there's a lot of people here visiting. It's a great place to go surfing, but today with the weather, I'm pretty much the only person out here at the beach.